So this is the elephant in the room, right? We're not comfortable with our ex. There's hard feelings. There's hurt. And so I have
No
to
trust.
state, I don't trust this individual, or this individual hurt me. I have to say that. And then when I say that, then I have to say, but how do I work around that for the good of our child? Okay. And so naming it and then knowing how it is impacting the parenting process, because now that becomes the defined object that we got to do some problem solving on. Rock Solid Families wants to thank Maxwell Construction for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast. For over 30 years, Maxwell Construction has been a leader in turning dreams into realities, building schools, banks, restaurants, and many other commercial and public facilities. Maxwell Construction has made it their priority to not just build buildings, but to build into their community. So if you have any construction needs, call them at 812-537-2200.
Welcome to the Rock Solid Families podcast. I'm Linda Hutchinson, the executive director of Rock Solid Families, and I'm here with my husband, who looks like you're ready for some sun.
I need some sun.
You're solar powered, aren't you?
My solar batteries are way down.
Yes. If you have been listening to our show, I left town.
Yeah, you still have a little bit of glow to you.
Yeah. Well, if you're just listening and not watching, but you're ready. You're ready to do some
overdue.
Some remote work south. But
we're going to have to figure that out, too. We'll have to record that week.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have to be out in the sun while we record.
That would be a shame.
Would be terrible.
But no, we're glad that you're here, and we have an important show for you today, one that unfortunately is a really relevant topic to so many people and so many families and homes today, and that is the whole idea of the must-dos, the essentials of effective co-parenting, and that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah. How about before that, let's thank our sponsors. Let's thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions. Let's thank Maxwell Construction. And let's thank our new sponsor, the Ice House, Hoosier Ice House, I should say. The Hoosier Ice House, which is a very awesome, cool restaurant down in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Really, I'd say a comfortably casual place. There is a bar off in one area, but there's family eating and everything in another area. And so they are coming along here in 2024 to be one of our sponsors. So we want to thank the Hoosier Ice House.
I can't wait till the weather gets warmer, because one of our favorite things is to go out and have dinner out there in their outside area.
Yep.
So anyway, so we welcome the Hoosier Ice House to the Rock Solid Families podcast, and thank you for their support and all of our sponsors' support. But really, hun, let's talk a little bit about this co-parenting situation, because in a perfect world, we wouldn't even have to be talking about this.
Yeah, and so, man, we deal with it all the time, right? We're in our office, in the court systems, we have these situations where we have divorced parents, separated parents, and they have to somehow get through their challenge of liking each other, but still parent a child together. It's hard enough to parent a child, even with two parents that halfway get along, right?
Yeah.
And when you have this emotional separation, it's really super hard. So we're going to talk about the 7 must-dos of co-parenting, and these are things that we'd ask you to get out a pen and paper. If you or somebody you know are in the midst of trying to do this, then pay attention. By the way, none of this is easy, so you just get that one off of your mind, right?
Yeah.
These are challenging things based off the situation you're in, but they are doable.
Yeah, and we kind of feel like we are in the trenches with you, because we've been married 36 and a half years. We have 2 biological sons, but we kind of have this co-parenting thing because our youngest 3 are from the foster care system, and they have biological parents who are still alive, and they were 11, 10, and 7 when they came into our home. So we had to navigate this world of a lot of different families weighing in, a lot of different voices in their lives. And how do we do that well? How do we do that effective in a way that honors God, but also is healthy for our kids and everyone else involved?
Yeah. Okay,
so we're kind of in this the same way.
Number one, let's start rolling.
Yeah.
Okay. The very first thing is you really have to understand what your personal attitudes are towards each other. You know what they are, but did you say them, and did you say how they're actually impacting the parenting thing? So this is the elephant in the room, right? We're not comfortable with our ex. There's hard feelings. There's hurt. And so I have to state, I don't trust this individual, or this individual hurt me. I have to say that. And then when I say that, then I have to say, but how do I work around that for the good of our child? Okay. Yeah. And so naming it and then knowing how it is impacting the parenting process, because now that becomes the defined object that we got to do some problem solving on.
And what I don't hear you say is, hon, that you just kind of shout it out and yell at them and tell them, I don't trust you. You betrayed me. I don't think you're saying that. You're saying recognize the inside turmoil you're having with betrayal or breaking of trust, or, just feeling jealous or whatever, and recognize that and put some healthy boundaries around it.
Right.
So that it doesn't impact your parenting decisions and your relationship with your child when it comes to working together in the co-parenting realm. And by the way, this isn't just with divorcing parents. This is also with foster families, guardians, grandparents. Maybe you have struggled with addiction, and so your mother is raising your child and you're trying to work together with them. Like, this is really the gamut of co-parenting, regardless of who is in authority with your child.
Honestly, whoever has an authoritative position.
Yes.
We would even like to extend this out to coaches and teachers. And that's why if your child's in a classroom with a teacher or a team coach that does things way different than you do, you can see the conflict, right, that happens. And so we want all of these people who are involved in the authoritative positions to be on the same page with you.
Such a good point. And when our children came into our youngest three came into our home, we reached out to the school counselors, their teachers, their coaches, and said, we need you on our team. We're struggling in this area, or the child is struggling with this. And so how can we work together? And we really didn't make it a power struggle. We made it a team effort.
Yeah, it's not personal at that time.
Yes, it was a huge win.
It's not against me, right?
Exactly.
It's for us.
Yeah.
Okay, so once we define that and we work through that, which, by the way, that's not just like typically one and done. You have to constantly come in. We have to meet today. I have to get my head right for this, all right? But once we do that, this number 2, you have heard this on our show many times, but these things here have to take place in all homes when we're raising kids. They are define the common parenting plan, okay? And in other words, what do you want for your kid when they're 21 years old and they're walking around as an adult? That's how I go about thinking about the common parenting plan. If you want this kid to be respectful and hardworking and a contributor in some way to the society, it's not going to happen the day they walk out the door at 21.
No.
That starts together when they're 3 years old, 4 years old. And so, honey, you want to just cover then what are the components of the parenting plan?
Well, and as you're saying that, I'm thinking, well, you can't have a respectful, honest child if you're stabbing each other in the back and throwing each other under the bus. Like, that's what your child's going to see, and that's what they're going to see modeled and do. So you want common values, common expectations, common consequences, common rewards. I had one mom and dad that were co-parenting, and they were not on the same page, and one parent gave that child an expensive vehicle like a year or two before they ever turned 16. It was almost like, I'm going to trump you. I'm going to get ahead of you. I'm going to show them I'm the loving parent. Man, that was just not healthy.
Yeah, man. And then we put the child in. And so this takes us into number 3, okay? The child, please hear us on this, because sometimes I think when people hear this, they're thinking we're saying something really bad about their kid or our kid or whatever. And we're saying you have to know, the number 3 here, we're talking about your child is in their nature a selfish, very selfish individual, okay? It doesn't mean they're not a great kid, people, okay, right? But they're thinking about themselves first. And so you have to think, what would be best for our family?
Yes.
And if we can get both spouses, whether they're in the same home or not, to say, what would be the best thing for our family? Then, hon, that idea about what kind of car or when we should get the phone for the kid. Now we are saying, well, the best thing for our family is unity.
Yeah.
If we can have unity so that we're all coming together and we're not fighting each other. And so the idea of us taking the child out of the manipulation piece here, because whether we use the child to manipulate against the other spouse, the ex, or whether the children uses one of us to manipulate to get their way. Either way, I have to be really quick to recognize, is there manipulation going on here? And is that good for our family?
Let's take example, the phone, okay? You can start with a dream or a wish, like I would love, it's really important to me that I communicate with my child every week. And so if that's your dream, if that's your wish or desire in this co-parenting, okay, it doesn't mean you have to give the 8-year-old their own cell phone, okay? And maybe you're saying, well, they're using it against me. They won't let me talk to the child, okay? Well, bring the dream or the wish into the conversation and say, this is why I'm giving him a phone. And so maybe you can compromise and say, well, I don't think we should give them a phone, but I'm willing to let them use mine every Wednesday to talk to you.
A lot of times the phone thing is, I have to give them a phone because if they're with their other parent, I don't trust that everything's okay over there.
Yeah.
And that's, again, like that could be legitimate, right? And if that's legitimate, usually the court should be involved because we have some level of supervision or concern going on. And so, but if that's the point, we have to come together and say, listen, then I want to be able to call at any time and call your phone and speak with our child, all right? So again, don't let that whole idea of, well, we have to do it because I don't trust
within reason, because I've seen that go to the other extreme. Like you're in the middle of a baseball game and the other parent's calling, like, I demand to talk to him right now. And so we got to be reasonable about it. And here's number 4, is that our goal is to strive toward equal time, that, we want, do whatever you can to work toward healthy co-parenting where both parents have, and all the family members that have influence and, authority over the child have an opportunity to speak and influence that child in a healthy way. But the goal is healthy.
Yeah. I want to add something to that, hon, just because you mentioned a word that I actually feel like, man, that hits it right on the head. Strive for equal but flexible. You mentioned the word flexible time. Guys, if you are going to be rigid, and let me tell you, we deal with rigidity because this is where the exes are so much at each other's throat that they say, well, then fine, we're only going to go by the parenting guidelines of the state. And that sounds really good on paper until life happens. And then when life happens, we go, oh my gosh, but my in-laws or my aunt or my grandma's coming in for this visit and we haven't seen her in forever, and we're like, oh, well, there's no flexibility for you. I'm sorry, this is my day. And as all this does is create tension. And so the flexible time that Linda is saying is that, generally speaking, if I was going to do 3 days 1 week at dad's and 4 days 1 week at mom's, then the next week it would reverse that and do the 4 and 3 to dad and then to mom. And the reason, guys, here's the reason for that, is it puts both parents in very equal positions of responsibility and obligation to the jobs and chores of raising a kid. What we find is that typically the old 80-20, which is common in our state, was that 80% of the time the kid is with mom, I would just say in this case, and 20% with dad, and that usually that 20% happened to be a weekend. And so dad's not working with schoolwork typically. He says, man, I only have the kids for a day and a half, essentially. So we're going to go out and have some fun. We're going to a movie, going to the park. And so that puts dad in a different light, and that's not a good light, a good light in the long haul. All right. So that we strive closer to that 50-50, so that especially that we can share that school and that routine and that mundane part of life that really is the biggest part of life.
Yeah, good point, hon. And I've heard that so many times where especially the mom feels like, I'm the bad guy, I'm the enforcer, and dad's just the fun guy, right? I get to go do fun things with dad. And so, yes, when possible, equal, healthy, flexible time allows both parents to be in that role of disciplinarian and homework and rules and things like that. So that's just helpful.
Yeah. Number 5, never talk bad about your ex or their other parent, their mom or their dad, in front of those kids, right? That attitude does nothing but hurt your kid. Remember, that kid is still thinking of their parent as a hero. And when you start to paint a dark picture and you start to do these things, there's something that frequently walks in our office, a case of called parent alienation. Yeah. And you might not, well, I would never do that. And the fact that you would, if mom, and I've got an 8-year-old child, and mom has a sweeter relationship because she spends a little more time with the kiddo and stuff, and mom is in the habit of kind of bashing and talking bad about dad, that in itself right there is planting a seed of alienation. It makes the kid more critical to say, I don't know if I feel safe around dad. All right. And so the idea here is that child needs a mom and a dad, a healthy mom and dad. Let's be clear, a healthy mom and dad. But the idea that we never are going to talk bad about our ex in front of those kids.
Yep. And so I understand you've been hurt. There's a reason why you're not together. And so get help for that, because this unforgiveness that you're holding on, this resentment, this bitterness, it leaks out your pores. It leaks out your look, the rolling of the eyes, the tone of your voice, the little snarky comments you make like, oh, it's about time he shows up, or, oh, yeah, sure, he's the fun guy, anything like that. And I've heard it so many times. And they're like, I'm not bitter. Oh, okay. I've let go of that. Sure you have. And so please get some help for you, because that is poison for not only just you, but your child as well. And they pick up on that and they start repeating that and they start having that. And maybe that's what you want. Maybe you want to have dad be hated or mom be hated or grandma be hated or whatever it is, but that's not healthy in the long run. Please do whatever you can to nip it in the bud.
All right. Yeah. So one of the things about the communication, if we are having a difficult time talking with our spouse, our ex, concerning the child, and maybe the text messages go kind of south on us, or the tone is not good, there are all kinds of common sharing apps that become very, the courts use them. One of them is, in our area, we use Our Family Wizard. And people, at first they don't like it, but then they do kind of like it because it makes the whole conversation very transparent.
Yeah.
And the reason why that's important is it's just general accountability, right? And so if we're concerned about how messages are being taken, and then we get hurt, and then we start wanting to talk bad, use somebody else to help you, or an app in this case, to help you kind of buffer what it is that you're going to say.
Sure. The sixth one is stability and predictability. Oh, I'm telling you, your children desperately need that. It's bad enough they have 2 homes to navigate now, and 2 households and rules and things like that. So as much as you can, please keep it predictable and stable. And you mentioned flexible, which, the kids need to learn flexibility, that things adjust when necessary. But for the most part, there's a routine. You go to bed at the same place, or not the same place, the same time in both houses. Yep. It's not 8 o'clock at mom's, but man, at dad's, I can stay up to 11.
Yep.
That's not healthy for the kids. You may think you get to be the cool dad, but you really create very instability for your child, and in the long run, super unhealthy.
And that is so important because sometimes I think we all like a break in routine, right? Oh, it's Christmas break coming, so we can sleep in a little bit. But what we find over the long haul is that the lack of routine causes a lack of stability, and the lack of stability causes an insecurity in kids.
Yes.
Everything from I'm not getting good sleep now, I don't want to know what I'm doing tomorrow. And so these routines and these predictable ways of living are so important. And so you got to get on the same page. If bedtime is at 8 in one house, then you got to make it around 8 in the other house, right? If you're not allowed to have this kind of food in one house, you could talk about that. What would it look like in my house? Again, we don't. This is where the flexibility comes, right? I've had people say, well, in our house we're vegetarian, and then in my house we eat pizzas and burgers or whatever. We got to use some common sense. What would be best for our family here?
Yeah, for sure. And please, mom and dad, as much as you can, try to create this in a healthy way where you're unified, because your kids are just going to benefit from it.
Okay. The last point, guys, this has been really spread throughout everything we've talked about today. Get help. Get help, whether it's in the communication, whether it's in setting up the values. Get help, especially where you need it, where you have an area where you're fumbling. This could be mediation. It could be coaching, like what Linda and I do here at Rock Solid. Get yourself some help, somebody that is not emotionally attached. And so this is not where you bring in your mom.
Yeah.
Okay. This is where you get somebody who, listen, Linda and I
no skin in the game.
Can actually help set your family up better than you can in most cases, only because we don't know all of the emotional baggage. And we go, well, here's what 50-50 would look like, or here's what rules would look like, or whatever. And so get that help to get that neutral, emotionally stable mediation.
Yeah. And again, we may not know all the situation. There may be some abuse, addiction, very unhealthy dynamics that have to be protected from our kiddos. We dealt with that through the foster care system. But as much as it was possible, we worked toward reconciliation and unification for the benefit of the children. And so that was our goal, because we knew that was healthy at all possible with their families. So please get some help. We would love to talk to you at Rock Solid Families. You can go to rocksolidfamilies.org, or you can reach out to us at 812-576-ROCK. That's 812-576-7625.
Let's bring this all down to why this matters. Guys, we need to be mindful of the fruit that we are producing as parents, because this is not about whether we are making somebody happy this moment. This is about what is this next generation going to look like. And so us having all of these differences and grievances against each other at this time of parenting these young kids, is that going to create a person that is not going to be as solid to be in relationships and be a parent themselves someday? And so we're talking about raising healthy fruit so that the fruit of the next generation is going to be solid.
So important, hon, because what walks in our door are folks dealing with anxiety, depression, anger, addiction, because of unresolved hurt and struggles and instability in their home growing up, with parents who were in addiction or divorcing or whatever. So please, please do this right and get past the hurt. Get some help for the hurt. I'm not saying you weren't hurt or betrayed, but there is something better for you and your family.
Yeah, Galatians 6, 7 through 10. It says, do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked.
Yeah.
A man reaps what he sows. Whoever sows to please their flesh, from the flesh will reap destruction. Whoever sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit will reap eternal life. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Yeah. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of believers. This is that whole idea of what are we producing, right, moving forward. And when that first sentence says, God cannot be mocked, his way, he's the one who designed how this whole family operation is going to go, guys. And so when you try to mock his way, when you say, I don't really care, I'm going to do it my own way, that is mocking him. That is basically looking at him and saying, we think we know better than you.
And I also would warn you, if you have been in a very destructive, hostile relationship, stop pointing the finger. The Bible says to stop looking at the speck in your partner's eye when there's a gigantic plank in your own eye. And sometimes we have to look in the mirror. And even if your partner or your ex will not come around the table to do some mediation, you get help. Because there's probably things you're doing or could be doing that could help the situation, even if your partner won't come around the table.
Yeah. The big disclaimer on all of this is, if your ex is somebody who is known abusive, if they're destructive, if they have addiction issues, then all of this needs to be put to the back, right? We have to protect the kids first, okay? And so we're not saying, well, you should let my kid go with their father who's a severe alcoholic and who gets drunk and blacks out. No, that's not what we're saying, okay? We're always looking at healthy individuals, all right?
But there's some people who have some unhealthy things in their past. They have gotten help for. They are actively working the program. And it's time. It's time to start coming around the table and working on rebuilding trust, even if it was broken because of what someone else did, okay? That unforgiveness, those memories are going to eat you alive and going to destroy the healthiness of your family.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Yeah.
We want to thank Maxwell Construction, Casey's Outdoor Solutions, and our new sponsor, Hoosier Ice House, for coming alongside of Rock Solid Families Podcast. Thank you guys for your help. We also want to thank all of you listeners out there as we have just continued to grow and just hopefully do good work for our community and all of you that are listening. We want to thank you guys. So do us a favor when you hear these shows, pass them on, share them with others, give us 5-star ratings just to help us come up in the search engines.
Yeah. So thank you so much for listening to the Rock Solid Families Podcast, building a stronger community, one family at a time. Make it a great day.
Rock Solid Families wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families Podcast. Casey's has grown to be one of the largest and most unique garden centers and gift shops in the Cincinnati tri-state area. Whether you are looking to take on that next landscape project or simply add a little home decor to your house, Casey's has you covered. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Call them today at 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.